Hello, everyone, and welcome to this first episode of this. I guess will be long-running series of album reviews. So I decided to start with what I think is the best way to start, which is talking about my favorite album of all time, my personal favorite, and about the reason why I like it so much and why I think it's so good of an album. So the album we will be talking about today is Blind Guardian's Nightfall in Middle Earth. Now, I think the first important thing to talk about this album is to contextualize it around like what was Blind Guardian at whenever they released this. So, as many of you might know, Blind Guardian is a predominantly a power metal band. But their first two albums were, let's say, a mix of speed metal and power metal, a good like 50-50 mix. Um, the two albums that came after that, Tales from the Twilight World and Somewhere Far Beyond, were more on like the predominantly power metal department, but still maintaining the speed metal roots that made them what they were in the first place. After these first four studio albums, and comes in Imaginations from the Other Side, which is a phenomenal album also. So check it out if you haven't. If you want to listen to it, if you want to check out more power metal, I highly encourage you to do so. But Imaginations from the Other Side kind of took, was not like relying on the speed metal element so much, but it was rather going in a different direction, which was not quite well defined on the album itself. So this is where Blind Guardian is just prior to releasing Nightfall in Middle Earth. So where does this go to? They solidified their prog metal influences on this record, Nightfall. And they do it in a very good way. I think part of why I don't really like prog personally is just because if the one thing you're clinging onto is just prog and it's just like too much technicality without anything else really put behind it, it kind of really drags and it can be really boring if the songwriting is not absolutely phenomenal. So what happens here is that Blind Guardian takes these prog metal elements and integrates them into their sound without ever dropping their power metal persona. They pretty much keep all of what made them the band they are, but they never give up anything else. Like they're not gonna give up power metal in the parts that they go prog. Otherwise, that would like totally fail. Instead, what they do is they take these prog elements. Combine it with their music in order to make something different from what they were making before, when you compare it to the more speed metal oriented sound. And I think this is a really important thing for power metal at the time, because I'm not gonna say there weren't power metal bands with prog influences at the time, but I think Blind Guardian was the first to implement it in such a way that the band remains very catchy, it remains very epic, it just keeps all those good things about power metal and don't sacrifice like a bunch of guitar wankery, or they don't go for that with their prog. Instead, they implement it in a way that just reinforces their brand of power metal. The other thing that makes this album so great is just songwriting is downright phenomenal. I don't think I can name a favorite from this album, just because whenever it starts playing, I just want to listen to it all the way through. Especially the first song, Into the Storm. What a great song that kicks off this album. You just can't help but learn the lyrics to it, sing to it, and it's just overall great. It goes with speed, it goes right into your face. Just Blind Guardian going in, no lube. It's not smooth, it's just roughly going into their album, showing you what they can do, which is amazing. And yeah, I can name any song from this album. I could like sit here and talk about what makes it so great, but I'm not gonna, because I just think the songwriting on this album is just really consistent and good throughout the entire thing. And I think Hansi, the singer from the band, said it himself when he said, I think he thought this was the album that came closer to his understanding of perfect blind guard music, and I can totally see that. So, what other things make this album so great to me and be a personal favorite? The guitar tone. Oh yeah, totally. Blind Guardian has such a distinctive guitar tone that they worked with over the years. I think with this album specifically, they solidified it in a way that it just sounds so punchy when it goes like into hard riffing mode and fast riffs, and whenever it goes into melody or solos, it just sounds like this wailing voice that really adds to the music and gives you, like, if you will, it kind of gives that perception that there's like another vocal layer to the album, which is also another thing I want to talk about. The vocals on this album, they're absolutely great. Blind Guardian basically on this album implements new stuff and everything that they brought with them from the past, and they just give it their all. And in terms of vocal performance, you get like this chants, this it's like sneaky parts where he sings lower and then escalates, heavy metal screams, power metal screams, just all those kinds of different vocals, and they just, it doesn't feel like they're giving you or trying to hit you with all they can at once. It rather feels like it's so well layered and everything just has its personal spot within the song that is just very enjoyable. um, and I think part of why Blind Guardian is very enjoyable is that they're not a band of cliche. Um, Whatever you think you're gonna get, like if you've heard enough power metal, you already kind of know. Probably gonna get like this riff, tram picking, and go on and so forth to the chorus, shout some wailing vocals, do your thing, and get out. And that's not what Blind Guardian does, and I don't think they ever did that that formulaic kind of music. They always go and try to hit you with something different. They try to surprise you. I don't think this is an album that you can predict whenever you first listen to it, and whenever you already even know it quite well as me, you're still gonna get surprised by all the things that are going on in here, because there's a lot going on, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it's easy to get into. It's really easy to enjoy on a first listen. It just makes it had a lot of replay value, because you're gonna discover a ton of new cool things from this album that you didn't notice before upon repeated listens. Another thing I think is great about the album is just the amount of thought that was put behind the track listing. As you know, the album kicks in with Into the Storm, fast, punchy, in-your-face guitar riffing, addicting and catchy vocals on the chorus. Everything goes so well with the song. And then later you get Nightfall, which is a more like mellow song, more like symphonic song on that side of things. And you kind of wonder, because it's really different from the track from before. So you're like, okay, so what's the deal here? What are they gonna give me next? And that's part of why it's not predictable. And at the same time, whenever you're hoping for them to go hard again, to do another song like Into the Storm, whenever you're hoping for that fast riffing and high intensity, they deliver, because I think a little bit like 1/3, midway through this album, you get Mirror Mirror, which is another great classic from the band. And it's just so great that whenever you're expecting to get the kind of song, well, it's not like it's predictable, but whenever you're expecting for them to go fast and hard again, they do it and they deliver. So it feels really natural. It feels like a really natural track listing, in the way that you're always gonna get what you wish for in terms of the style of the song. And yeah, I think that's what makes the track listing so good. You just always get what you want, and Blind Guardian delivers. But they're not gonna give you a predictable song. They're gonna deliver and give you a song that still will surprise you and will have a lot of things to show. Now, I do want to talk about what most people say about this album that could be like a downside or a bad part about this album, um, which has to do with the track listing, and it's the fact there's a lot of intros or interludes in this album that a lot of people say cut the flow of the album, and that has to do a lot with the fact this is a concept album from Tolkien's work. I'm not really familiar with Tolkien's work. I haven't read the album that this. I mean, I haven't read the book that this album is based off, so I can't really tell you if the interludes or intros are a bad thing or not. Because let's put it this way: if you were a big fan of Tolkien, you were really into the lyrical work in this album. You were really into the themes. The the interludes are gonna make much more sense to you, and it's gonna make you feel like you're expecting the next song. You're gonna learn them by heart. You're gonna learn every spoken word passage, and you're just gonna love it just because it has to do with something you like so much. So I think rather than musically, the flow of this album is maintained probably by its theme. Again, I'm not 100% sure since I'm not familiar with the work, with Tolkien's work, the book, or that much familiar with the lyrical content here, but the flow of the album is assured by the theme it has and just by Blind Guardian's overall consistency and solid track listing order. And one final thought I want to point out of what is such a great album is that Blind Guardian plays with passion. And you can tell whenever you listen to one of their albums that they really do it with passion. They give it their all, and it always comes out great. It's my favorite band of all time, and this is my favorite album of all time for a reason. I think Blind Guardian always does everything to 110%. 110%. Yeah, they just always give it their all,